Good evening, everyone. I, Rudransh Gupta, along with my co-host Sakshi Dhumal from Communique IIT Kharagpur, would like to welcome you all to the first session of Off-Campus Internship Training Week on Tech Profile. Tech Profile can be a tough cookie to crack. So today we have four very talented panelists with us who will guide you, give a broader perspective as well as insights about off-campus internships. I think it will certainly help all of us. So without further ado, let's begin.
So first we have with us Ritu Sanket, who has secured an internship opportunity at Microsoft. Ritu, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, hi. Hi everyone, my name is Ritu. I am a fourth year undergraduate student from the Department of Aerospace Engineering. I am in the dual degree and I am also pursuing a minor in computer science and engineering. I am from Bangalore and I am currently residing in Bangalore. I interned with Microsoft at the end of my third year and I've gotten a returning offer. I look forward to being here today.
All right, that's great. Next, on the panel, we have Saransh Gupta, who is bagged an intern at Amazon. Saransh, would you please introduce yourself?
Sure. Hello everyone. My name is Saransh Gupta. I'm a final year undergraduate student at IIT Kharagpur, enrolled in its dual degree course of Quality Engineering, Design and Manufacturing. I am from Bharatpur, Rajasthan, and I've been working with ML from the past 2 or 3 years of my undergraduate studies, and I will be starting my internship from 17th of January. It will be a 6 month of internship. So, yeah, I look forward to have a great session with you guys.
Thank you, Saransh. Next we have Devang Upadhyay, who has secured an internship at Edelweiss. Over to you, Devang.
Thanks a lot. First of all, I appreciate the effort Communique has taken for organizing all of this, and I hope that a lot of people benefit from this. My name is Devang Upadhyay. I'm a final year student, fifth year student of the Department of Mining Engineering, enrolled in its dual degree program with a specialization in engineering entrepreneurship. Another relevant part of the introduction for the session would be I did my internship in Edelweiss at the end of my fourth year, and it was an internship in the field of, uh, you can say, cloud and ML.
All right, thank you, Devan. Finally, on the panel, we have Ijazur Rahman, who has got a full-time role at Google. Ijazur, would you please introduce yourself?
Yeah, thanks for organizing this. I am Sheikh Ijazur Rahman. I recently got an offer from Google Taiwan for software developer role. And additionally, like I had also received an offer from CDC from one of the leading HFT Graviton. Apart from that, last summer I did an intern in Adobe and I'm from Department of Electronics and Communication. That's all about me.
Thank you, Zazur. So let's move on to the questions. So first and foremost, before applying for the interns, it is important to choose the right profile you are interested in. So panelists, what in your opinion would help the students make the best choice? Saransh, would you
Can I
like to go
answer?
first? Yeah,
Okay.
go ahead.
Okay. So let me tell my experience because my experience might be quite different from rest of the others. So I was not into the software field since the first year because I was not decided to what I will do for what I do for the next few years. So I first explored fields like in my core engineering. So at that time I had an opportunity to got an research intern and I am quite able to explore this field. And after that I decided that I am not suited for job. So for this role, for the core engineering in my electronics. So I kind of eliminated. After that, I tried to explore all other different things like ML is one of the aspects which I looked into. And during that intern at Adobe, I got to work with in ML project. So at that time, I also decided that ML is kind of not what I am looking for. So back then, like I tried to explore all other fields and competitive programming seems quite good for me. So I stick to that. And this kind of approach is kind of called elimination. So I first tried that field. If I decided that I'm not suited, then I tried different approach. And that's why I found that I'm good at problem solving and I will continue in that.
Okay, Saransh, would you like to go next?
Yeah, so yeah, it's a great question. Deciding what's best suited for you. So, if you're a fresher or a second year at IIT KGP, you must be able to get plenty of opportunities which IIT KGP provide. Of course, due to this COVID thing, research groups are not uh, active at their pace, but you can definitely explore your interest by those research groups. So once you get into them, go into the details of what kind of work is being done and think if you like that kind of work or not. Apart from that, you can explore other fields like personally I explored core mechanical engineering when I was in team cart in my first year, and autonomous underwater vehicle in my first year. But then I thought I deserve something other than core engineering. So I looked into other fields as well, like machine learning. I got into Python programming, and then through these inter hall competitions, I got into inter hall data science competition, and and by that I explored machine learning and thought, yeah, machine learning is something that I want to really pursue in my life. So yeah, that was about my story, that how I got into this.
Thank you, Saransh. Ritu, would you like to go next?
Yeah, sure. I think they already said, what generally people at IT Kharagpur follow is sort of the elimination method. So if I talk about what I did in my 4 years, like as Saransh said, right, there are a lot of opportunities for second years and third years, like a lot of opportunities to explore. So overall, if you look at the categories, right, there would be core, there would be finance, there would be tech and software, and then there would be AI/ML, right? So in my second year, I was doing like core, and then I got into AI/ML. Like everyone was doing the Andrew NG course, so like I also did that. So after that, that is how I actually got my internship, which I'll talk about more. But after I did AM, then I decided, okay, this is not maybe what I'm looking for. And right now I am looking into like a product and tech products. So like I would say that especially if you're in your second and third year, keep a lookout for like what all opportunities are there and like explore and do all of that. Like if I had to list out for you over the top of my head, you have GCs and you have open ITs where like you have like a variety of stuff to go into, right? You can go into AI/ML, you can go into case studies, you can do like the hardware modeling. Apart from that, you can take projects with professors, which will also help you, very easily decide if you're into this path or not. Apart from that, there are like hackathons. I think you get a lot of mails about hackathons in AI/ML, in cybersecurity, cryptography, all of that. So like what I would say is the easiest way that everyone does is elimination. You very easily get to know if this is something you want to do or not. So like keep a lookout on whatever is available and then decide whether you like that or not, and then you can move to the next option.
Okay, Devang, would you like to add something?
I feel that majority of whatever is around this particular topic has been kind of covered. However, there is this one particular thing that I feel, and it is that in the real world, it doesn't really work this way. That you're very selective about this particular, because especially if you're talking about say second year students, third year students, or fourth year students who are trying to make a career, so they don't really have this kind of a benefit or privilege to be very selective. You should be, or they should be in general, open to exposure. And that's how you can, follow elimination. So it should be clear, that if you're looking for a summer internship opportunity at the end of your third year, so what is your objective for that particular internship? And some sort of a longer vision. And if you have to take a final call, because if we're talking about the pre-final year students, that internship, if that is an internship you're trying to go for an off-campus internship, so that is an important one because it will lead to your final placements. So I think there is one more thing that you should look for another metric, and that is whether you're actually fit for the role in the industry. So it's less about like we can cover things like whether that is a developing field, whether there are going to be opportunities in the future or not, and a lot of that. But it is important that in my experience, there have been a lot of cases where people, do an intern, and then after that they realize that they actually don't want to do that job. And I think a few panelists mentioned that as well. So while deciding the actual profile for the pre-final year internship, it is necessary that you figure out whether you want to stay there in the long run or not. Because, if you have, say, an intern in AI and ML, your final intern, and then you're in placements, you're looking for a non-tech opportunities, you'll have to answer this question: why are you not into non-tech earlier, or why not pursue that, right? Because it's usually one thing leading to other. So that is another metric that I'd like to add.
All right, that's great. Moving on to the next question we have. Many a times it becomes quite difficult for the students to reach out to the major companies. So what are some effective ways that you all use to reach out to the companies? Saransh, would you like to answer that first?
Yeah, so one of the most effective method to reach out to the companies is that build your connections on LinkedIn. That's very important. Uh, keep in touch with with your alumni and who are working in your target profiles or your target companies, and you can probably ask if there is some opening, and they can probably give a referral to you for that company. Second to that, I think you can use emailing, but I don't think emailing works too effectively. According to me, asking for referrals from your alumni, it works the best.
Great. Devang, would you like to add something on this?
Yeah, basically, if you see, there isn't an ideal answer to this, right? I can list down the number of ways you can actually reach out to firms. There are hackathons, different firms have dedicated programs, but then there's something that actually works on the ground. And Saransh kind of highlighted that very nicely. So, in reality, the most effective way to secure, an off-campus opportunity would be through connections. Now, those connections could be your peers, your seniors, alumni. However, because if we look at the whole process of getting an off-campus internship, the bottleneck lies in reaching out to the firm, right? So you have to build connections. Now, do that however you can.
All right. Ijazat, would you like to add something from your own experience?
Yeah, I got an opportunity with Google because I had good Kickstart rank. I had around 100 in Kickstart, few times got 100 and in that range always. So I think that was kind of good impact on my resume. And when I applied to Google, so through their career page directly, they have screened my resume, and might be this is the reason why they got shortlisted me. And another thing is that I also got offer from, not offer, I also got interview from Amazon London and few other companies. So I directly applied to their career page. So it might be better if you have some connections, but I think that I had some resume and I was applying to only the international locations. So in that case, I was getting interview and other companies, like few other companies, I have participated in hackathons or not hackathons, the coding challenges on HackerEarth, and I got contacted by them, like few HFTs in India and these things. So yeah, the same thing.
That's great. Rutu, would you like to share something from your side?
I think like more or less everyone already told the main views. So I'll just like summarize and sort of add how you can actually do this, right? So if you're looking at like the first like easy, like, the way that everyone just mass mails companies and, cold mailing, you can get like mail IDs using extensions on LinkedIn like Lucia, and then you can have like extensions on Gmail also to track the mails and all of that. So you can set up like a system. It does not take a lot of effort, and it also does not give a lot of results, right? So this is definitely one way. Like I think everyone cold emails. The other like very very effective way would be alumni. Like I think especially IIT Kharagpur, right? We have alumni everywhere. Like you would be surprised where we have alumni. And how would you know where alumni are? One, be connected to them on Facebook, and if it is difficult to get them on Facebook, since they're very they've graduated before, you can definitely find them on LinkedIn. So as you mentioned, right, LinkedIn is very 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 important. So you can get connected to all these alumni who are founding companies, they're at very high positions in other companies. You can get connected to them. And even on LinkedIn, right, there are groups for IIT. So there's like an IIT referral group, and there are, I think, alumni groups which you can also join. And why is it important to join alumni groups? Because one, they can give you, openings. They can tell you about potential openings in companies, and two is they can give you referrals. So the third important thing would be referrals, because I actually applied to Google and I had a referral from one of my seniors and I got an interview. So like referrals is like a short way of getting into the next stage. So an alumni will always give you referrals, right? No alum is going to be like, I'll not do it for you. So that is the reason why you should always be connected, and keep in mind that referrals will get you to the next stage. So that is an add-on definitely to your profile. Apart from that, I would say that there are a lot of hackathons, and for this you actually have to be updated on what sort of hackathons are there. Like if you make a sheet and make a list of hackathons, like off the top of my head, like Microsoft has Engage, Microsoft has Codesk, and Google has Foobar, which like I think a lot of people don't know, but if you cross level 3 in Google Foobar, you get like a direct interview or a test. So if you have like a list of all these hackathons through which, it's sort of like a side door as opposed to the original 4 interview process. So this also is like a effective way of keeping a track and maybe getting an opportunity. And like the final way would just be to apply on the career page. If you have like an excellent profile like Azure, if you have like a very good coding rank and all of that, then if you directly apply on the career page, then you will definitely go to the next round. So I think to summarize, these were the main methods.
Yeah, that was very insightful. So moving on to the next question. Panelists, what according to you would be better, a company brand or a startup environment with a lot of pressure and a lot of things to learn? So Devang, would you like to start this?
Right, cool. So again, this is something that is more of a fit question. It's not a question of what is better and what is not better. You should be clear about your objective, what you want to have, because what I can do is list down the pros and cons of both. So obviously, when you look for an internship in say a startup, you'll have a broader horizontal coverage because there's a limited number of people who have to achieve say some task, and you'll get to learn a lot, and it will be a very kind of a dynamic production type of an environment, which is really good, and you should have that kind of exposure at least once during the internship phase. However, if you continue pursuing this kind of interns, and if you kind of fall in love with startup culture and continue all of that, then it might be difficult for you to land a big brand in the final placement season, because there is this way in which you can evaluate CVs. So brands on CVs do look good, and they kind of make some particular curriculum vitae stand out from the other. So I think that you have to kind of optimize a balance between this and that, and you have to figure out. Say at the end of my second year, I would prefer something like a pressure environment setup, something like a startup. But at the end of my third or fourth year, I'd prefer something like a brand, because I want to have a balance. I want to have a diverse coverage that I can work in this kind of environment as well as this kind of environment as well.
Ijazul, would you like to add something from your own experience?
Yeah, it's kind of everyone's personal matter, like where they actually get a better fit in, kind of in a big company or in a kind of tech startup. For me, kind of, I was mostly tailing into like complex problems, which can be good, like both found with good startups as well as big tech companies. So I was comfortable with both of them. So and that's the reason I applied to some small companies and some kind of reputed organizations as well. But yeah, like everyone's personal opinion.
Okay, and Ritu?
Yeah, so I've interned with a startup before, and I've also interned with a big brand. So I'll just talk about my perspective. Firstly, I want to clear this assumption that pressure environments are only at startups. Like with my personal experience, I think there was a lot of pressure also in the team that I work with. So it all depends. So if you're with a big brand, right, they generally have like, let's say Google or Microsoft or Amazon, they have like a lot of teams. They have like a variety of teams and like many different small pods sort of. So like your work experience and what you learn and who you'll interact with will be very dependent on that. But that does not mean that it'll be very easy, or there'll not be a lot of money. You will have to showcase results, you will have to get the work done and all of that. Apart from like, as opposed to this, if you're working at a startup, more generally you'll have the sort of same experience that everyone else has. So, there will be like just a small team that you're working on. And of course, there is a lot of pressure because it is a startup. But I just wanted to clear that, even at big brands, there is, there might be potentially a lot of pressure. I feel like it's a circle, right? If you want to get a job at a big brand, you need to have some internships on your CV. And if you want to have some internships on your CV, you need to have an internship with a big brand. So it's like sort of a circle, but I would definitely say that if you have a brand on your CV, it opens up doors for you. Like once I interned with Microsoft, I would, it's sort of like a spike in your CV. So if you have a big brand and you get that spike, then more for other companies increases, like even if they're startups or other big brands. So in general, the pro of getting a company brand is that it opens a lot of doors for you into other companies. And the pro of working at a startup is that it improves your network. You interact with these people at such a close micro level that you become you increase your network and you become really good friends with a lot of other people also. So I think that is the pro of working at a startup. And again, as they all said, it depends on you which one you'd want to prioritize on. But it does not mean that if you work at a big brand, you cannot do startup, right? You can do both and you can see which one is better for yourself.
Okay, and Saransh?
Yeah, so a lot has been said about this question, and I completely agree with all the panelists. My answer is also similar to what others have said, but I would like to add one more thing. Yeah, it's a personal opinion, like brand matters or the fast-paced startup environment. But I would always prefer an internship, which gives me opportunity to learn. Internship means that you have something that gives you opportunity to learn. So be it a big firm like FANG or some Ambaby type firm, or it's some random startup, some normal startup, I would prefer a startup where I have plenty of work to do, and I have a lot to learn from their environment.
All right, that's great. So moving on to the next question, we have a good CGPA is the aim of each and every student. Would you all like to shed some light on the importance of it with regards to the selection procedure? Rutu, would you like to start with this?
Yeah, sure. So I'll assume that we're only looking at like companies and for internships. So if I would say it depends, right? If you look at the importance of CGPA, it depends on the profile also. So in each separate profile, let's say we look at core, we look at tech software, AI, ML, all of that. And then we look at non-tech, right? So in my opinion, if you're looking at the core, if you're applying to core internships, so let's say if I'm in aerospace, I want to apply to Airbus off campus, then CGPA is a very important criteria. Like if I want to get into a good internship, I should have at least like a 9+ CGPA, because that is my core subject, right? They expect you to have some sort of knowledge and interest, and it shows that you actually spent effort in your coursework, and it shows that you will work harder also. So in core, I would say that CGPA is a pretty important criteria. I mean, I think it at least accounts to around 50% of the entire selection process. Apart from this, if I go into tech, tech as in I'll count AI, ML, software, all of that. I feel like people who are doing tech, right, you don't necessarily need to be from CSE or across all backgrounds, and companies also know that. So in general, for a tech, to get a tech internship, you have to cross the test, which is like a coding test, and that is the main factor that they care about, like the test and then the interview. So in this, the CGPA would not matter a lot. I say you need to have like an average or above average CGPA. Now I'm not sure what the average is today, because with online class, everyone's CGPA has increased, but in like our time, the average was around, I'd say, like if you had an 8 CGPA or above, that was good enough. Now that number might have increased also. And then finally, if you look at like non-tech, in non-tech, I think it depends, because in like all these non-tech internships, resume shortlist is pretty important, because companies shortlist based on resumes first, and then they take like interviews. There is no separate test that they're using to clear, right? So in this case, CGPA does matter to some extent. It is like, as I said, it's a spike in the CV. So let's say you have a very good CGPA, that shows that, okay, person is academically excellent. So that adds like a spike to your CV. But in general, an above average CGPA in non-tech also should be enough. But I mean, of course, it does not hurt to have a very good CGPA, right? So overall, like this is what I can think of.
That's great. Devang, what are your views on this?
So again, if I read what's displayed on my screen, it is importance of CGPA in the selection process. And I really feel that this is, there should be some more words. Selection process off. Because uh, is there some connection issue?
No, we can
No.
hear you.
Yeah.
Am I still audible?
Yeah.
Yeah, Deva.
Yeah.
Cool. So again, if we talk about, say, the statistically relevant part of KGP audience who try to get, and I'm limiting the scope of answer to off-campus internships. Statistically relevant part of the segment that try for off-campus internships in tech, I don't really think that CGPA is important. Primarily because if we bifurcate tech on the basis of, say, pure software, and then there is this big field of analytics mixed with, which is not directly exactly ML and AI, but yeah, it has some overlap with ML and AI. And then anything else that is in tech, we can put that in a side bucket, because that might be some sort of an hybrid of all of this. So they, and if we're talking about, again, we had earlier questions that bifurcated on the basis of brand names and startup cultures. So if we talk specifically about, say, software in startups, CGPA will have zero importance. If we talk about startups and almost any particular role, CGPA will have zero importance, because they want someone who can work on the ground. They'd rather, they don't have this kind of privilege that they reject candidates, good candidates, on the basis of CGPA. But if we talk about brands, say like Fang, so they have a lot of privilege. They have a lot of candidates that are applying, right? Even through off-campus drives or whatever. So they would rather, since it's an eliminative process and CGPA is an easy way to eliminate people. So yeah, I think that would make some sense that, but more or less, if we limit the scope of this question to off-campus internships in tech, I don't think that CGPA is that a big determining factor.
No, that's great, Deva. Ijazat, what would you like to add from your own experience on this?
Yeah. CGPA it's kind of, if you have some good CGPA, then it shows that you are kind of continuously you are achieving something great, something good. Okay, but that has to be balanced with your profile. Like if you have some CG 9.7 and you don't know coding and you are applying for software role, then that doesn't make sense. So if you are getting good CGPA, but don't, without affecting your profile, like what are the skills required to get to into that profile, if you are not affecting that, then try to focus on CGPA, but otherwise it's fine. But having good CGPA is always good, because if, as Devang said, that for Fang, they actually put some cutoff on the CG, and I think in some cases they like in CDC also they put 8 CGPA cutoff, and for other role like product management or some other role, I don't think that it might be a good factor. Okay, so yeah,
Just a second. I'm sorry if I'm interrupting, but then whatever I said is specifically for off-campus. If we talk
yeah.
about CDC on campus, answer would be entirely different. CGPA dominates, but this is specifically for off campus.
Yeah, you said correctly. Like for even for startups, like if you apply to some startups, like big startups, then for that case also they look into your CGPA. Like it's, you don't have to be like, if you are having a very good CGPA, then it will give you a spike on your resume, and that is great to be have. But as I said that if you are like giving lots of times to build your CGPA and ignoring the skills required to get to that job, then that is not acceptable. I mean that only.
All right, that's great. Saransh, would you like to add something to this?
Yeah, absolutely. For off-campus process, if we put the core part aside, the core engineering aside, yeah, uh, in core engineering, CGPA matters. It matters to great extent, but for non-core, according to me, non-core is software, AI, ML, etc., etc. So for them, they really look into what skills that you have acquired in your undergraduate studies, Like when I got this Amazon ML internship, I wasn't even a 8-pointer. I was I had a CGPA less than 8, but they looked into my profile. I had a good exposure to the research and corporate exposure. Yeah, and I have worked extensively in ML throughout my UG curriculum. So they looked into all these things and shortlisted my resume for the interview. And once you let me make it correct. CGPA is not usually a part of the selection process. Like it's just a part of the screening process. They will filter you out if they want to, based on your CGPA. Once that is done, it hardly matters to anyone. The only thing that they look into yourself is how much skills have you acquired and how your resume aligns with their job descriptions and with their company requirements.
Well, that was very interesting. So let's have our next question. So along with academics, the extracurricular activities of a student also reflects his potentials. So how much of a sway does that hold in the selection process? So Saransh, would you like to take this question first?
Yeah. Uh, First of all, let me ask, what do you mean by extra academic? Like your involvement in hall or research group activities, or just some extra activities like sports, music, those kind of activities?
Yeah, including all of that, like in general, all.
Including all of yeah. So definitely, if you are into a research group or involved into some great project apart from your academics, that really helps build your resume, your profile. And company considers any company or startup would consider that you have done great things apart from your academics, and you are being able to manage uh, academics along with these extra academic activities. They definitely consider those things as well. But yeah, it depends upon what kind of profile you are applying for. Like for software or AI ML part, they usually prefer candidates with good skill sets like data structures and algorithms or competitive programming. But for other profiles like consulting, uh, they will give a huge weightage to this extra academic activities like possessing a POR. That adds a lot to your CV if you are into those kind of profiles.
Okay, Ritu?
Yeah, I think Saransh actually covered it, but I'll just talk about extra academic activities in the selection process. Again, this is like very vague, but I'll talk about all the 4 sectors again. So let's say we look at non-tech, which is consulting and all of that. Then we look at tech, which is software, and then we look at core. Let's just leave that aside. So if I'm looking at tech, right, extra academic activities do matter, but then like there are a lot of types of extra academic activities, right? There is PORs, which is where you can be, hall president, or you can be like VP and all of that. Apart from that, there is also which competitions have you taken part in, which hackathons have you taken part in, and and the third thing is what skills have you gained, like let's say Python, pandas. This is like an extra thing apart from your curriculum, right? So there are like different types of extra academic activities. So as Saransh mentioned, right, if you're applying for like tech opportunities, then extra academic activities do matter, but they have to be focused on the job profile that you're applying for. So if I'm applying to a job at Google as a software development engineer, I will not write over there that I was governor of some society. I would say that I have experience in NLP, or I have experience in this SDK, because that matters more. So extra academic activities do matter everywhere. It always looks good, but you have to tailor it to which profile you're applying to. And then if I'm applying to, let's say, non-tech profiles, right, like consulting, especially, their PORs would matter more. So instead of saying I have tech experience, I would write that I was a governor, something like that. So like I would say you should be able to tailor the profile, but in general, any extra academic activity would be an addition to a good CV.
Okay, Zazur. Would you like to add something with that?
No, I don't think that all of the aspects regarding that has been already covered. So I don't think it is necessary to add anything new.
Okay, and Devang?
Yeah, I mean, I think that there are a few things that I want to say, and I'd rather just define the scope of my answer first before answering. So first, let's define what is extra academic, and it has been a lot of people have commented, and I kind of agree with everything that has been said. However, if we talk about like CV wise, let's talk extra academics. So extra academic is not a word that is used very commonly. And then there are extracurricular things. So co-curricular things is anything that you do along with the curriculum. Extracurricular thing is anything that is, nobody forced you to do that. Okay. And there was no kind of binding to do that. And if we talk about our own CV portal, there is one dedicated bucket to this that is at the end. And we have four types of extracurricular activities, which would broadly be classified into social work, uh, tech, so cult, and sports. Okay, this is how we do it in KGP at the end. And I feel that again, limiting the scope of my answer to off campus and tech, just for these two, I think extra academic activities and involvements do not have they have one particular case where they might be useful, but apart from that, and we'll discuss that case right now, but apart from that, it is not usually impactful or even relevant. And that one case where it might be impactful and relevant is, you know, you have an interview scheduled with a person at Google, and you play chess, and it is highly likely that he might play chess as well, because chess is something that is, mentally stimulating and exciting for some people. So there is this possibility that your extra academic activities might, resonate with the interviewer. And in that case, that gives you a like huge boost for the whole thing, because he might, you have 30 minutes at max, 30 to 45 minutes with one interview round. And they kind of, apart from your technical background and knowledge, they kind of want to make sure whether they would enjoy working with this person or not. And in that aspect, that is this one unique use case where extra academic activities in off campus tech might be important. But apart from that, I don't think it's relevant.
All right, that's great. Moving on to the next question, we have good resources are key for better preparation. Would you all share about the resources that you use for your preparation? Ijazat, would you like to go first?
Yeah, I think that it is not that much relevant to put up a resource for each particular profile in this session. So first, like after you identify that which profile you are aiming for, then you can list down all of the prerequisites required to break into that field. And there are ample amount of resources available online. Like one of my key skills is kind of getting into good programming skill. So for that, you can find lots of the programming websites are there, like CodeSafe, CodeForces, and whatever, InterviewBit, LeetCode, everything. So in that you can find a lot of the resources, and there are some other platforms as well where you can prepare. So yeah, that's it.
All right, Saransh, would you like to add something on this?
Yeah. So for preparation, it depends upon what kind of profile are you aiming for. Like, I can tell you about the SDA profiles and AIML profiles because I have been into them. So for SDE, I think doing interview bit does a lot of part, and apart from that, you can refer to lead code. Basically, you need to practice your DSA, data structures and algorithms part. So that was for software engineering. For AI/ML, I would suggest if you are a beginner, then go with the Android NG course that is on Coursera. Once you complete that, get your hands on with Python, with machine learning in Python. Um, then I would suggest once you get your theoretical part and hands on done with Python, um, start practicing from Kaggle and Analytics Vidya. Like there are a lot of data sets from which you can practice and prepare yourself for some real life problems. Yeah, that was it for both these profiles. I said.
That's great. Devang, would you like to add something to this?
See, resources are actually available in abundance, and it's not really, it's. I have never actually encountered a situation where lack of resources might have hindered a person from getting into any particular domain or that, because I think the more, determining factor is kind of how much zeal you have to, pursue or figure out what the resources are. However, there is this one thing that I feel that zeal or a lot of enthusiasm and willingness to say go directly into machine learning or AI. So the thing with the resources that are available here are is that they're scattered. Okay, so they're scattered is and the field is diverse. There is ML, which is actually kind of, there are several courses that are available that kind of try to cover the whole thing, and then there is deep learning, reinforcement learning, and deep learning further divided into, say, I don't know, three segments: computer vision segment, the sequential that would cover NLP and time series, and then anything like an autoencoder would be an offbeat kind of an architecture, and then RL is another different thing. So the thing is, it's a huge horizontal coverage, and if you try to look at resources, you will get lost. And then resources are again bifurcated into, if you talk about, say, Andrew Ng course. So I don't really know about the scenario now, but back when I was in first or second year, the problem was that the course for ML for Andrew Ng was in MATLAB. And this has changed, I guess, recently. But then there was this thing that there is theoretical knowledge about ML, and then there is this thing where you actually write some code. And people are not able to, get their hands on both. So there is one particular thing that I feel is very useful for anyone who wants to start with ML, and that is, if you go to Kaggle, they offer some dedicated courses. Go to Kaggle and courses. That is one thing that is useful for anyone who wants to start with ML. I wouldn't comment upon CP or anything else because they're available in abundance, and I think Saransh mentioned that a lot, like really well. So.
All right. Rutu, would you like to share some insights on this?
No, I think whatever they mentioned like sums it up pretty well.
So let's have a next question. So what would be the best strategy for the preparation with the best utilization of the remaining time right now? So Izazur, can you take this question?
Yeah, base time means that for this internship session, like internship that will start from May 2022 or for the next year?
I think for the summer interns.
For the next, like immediate summer intern. Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, for my profile, like if you are very beginner to this competitive programming or this field, so you might face a lot of hard times developing your skill set within 1 or 2 months before applying to these companies. So in short, you can just start with few platforms like InterviewBit, like where things are kind of quite organized and focused on whatever you have achieved till now, and try to find that companies that is kind of aligned with your resume. So my suggestion will be that.
Okay, Ruthu, would you like to add something?
Yeah, like as you mentioned, I think like there is not a lot of time. So the main thing would be to finalize what you're working on instead of having like a broad range of stuff that you want to do, right? Just focus on like one thing and like practice that. I think resources we've already said. So like figure out what one small aspect of tech that you want to work on. Just practice your skills then, and like you can already start improving your connections, asking for referrals and all of that. But I would always say that the key to getting something is to start applying. Like even if, let's say, you're getting ready now, if you start applying now, then maybe you get an opportunity to go to like an interview in the next 1 or 2 months. So I would say like work on all aspects, not only preparation, also like application, like start applying, asking for referrals, and I think you guys should be good to.
Okay, Devang, what is your opinion on this?
My opinion would be this is a very interesting question because you have said it's not like what's a strategy. You have asked the best strategy, and strategy is something which is very personal. Personal as in you have a whole case in which you follow a strategy, and then you change one metric, and the strategy might change drastically. So if I actually have to answer the question, I'll have to list down all the possible cases, including where. So first we'll have to figure out which profile you're targeting and where do you stand right now. So list down like what are the scales where you might be and how much time we have. Time is something that is fixed, but then where you stand right now and where you want to be, and then develop a strategy. So that was something I would answer this. And so that would take like another hour. So we'd not go into that. I think the best strategy would be something like where any individual would first figure out where he stands right now and versus say in 4 months or 5 months where he wants to be. We don't really have 4 months. If we talk about the summer interns right now, you at least have at max have around 2 months. So you have a limited time. So you first properly jot down where you stand versus where you want to be, and then figure out what is missing, and then put dedicated effort towards that. That is something that would be the best strategy. I mean, given that we have a general case.
Yeah, okay, that was great. And Saransh?
Uh, I think great suggestions have been given by all the three panelists. So, um, from my side, best strategy. The best strategy would be a strategy which you follow and you do not get drained out when the D-Day comes. Uh, so, yeah, that's the best strategy according to me. You can plan it accordingly, as Devang has nicely explained. Like evaluate where you actually are now and where you want to see yourself after 3 to 4 months or 5 months. So yeah, that was it from my side.
All right, that's great. Moving on to the next question, we have acing interviews is quite an intriguing challenge, and you all, out of all people, would know the best about it. So, would you please provide us with some valuable insights on this? Devang, would you like to go first?
Okay. So I mean, you want the answer again limited to off-campus tech or just general interview acing?
It would be quite beneficial if you will just give us on the general interviews.
Okay, cool. So to figure out what is the best thing that you can do in an interview, you actually need to know that what exactly is the basis on which they eliminate in an interview. So we are in the survival mode, right? You want to survive the interview, and hope for the best, be prepared for the worst. So the thing is that the worst possible thing that can happen to any candidate is that he or she is not even be able to display her own or his own best potential in the interview, right? This is the worst thing that can happen to any candidate. So like know a lot of tech, you know a lot of things, but then you're not able to convey that within 30 minutes. And that happens. That actually happens a lot of times. And the reason for that is we are not mentally prepared for the interview in a manner that we are not confident that we actually deserve the position we are applying for. So the thing is that the whole interview process is it will be it's a random kind of thing, right? And you want the odds to favor you. So I think what does the job for me is kind of internally accepting that I actually deserve the role that I'm applying for. And if I feel that I do not deserve the role, then figure out why I don't deserve that role and solve that problem. So that when you step into the interview, you are in the mindset and the energy that is completely reflective of your best version. Okay. And then obviously the other thing is that even if you are, at the best, epitome of tech, but then you're not able to communicate properly, that is a big issue, because the other person, it doesn't matter what you want to convey, what the other person perceives as what is important. So the other thing that you need to work on is effective communication, if we talk about the interview process in general. So like confidence plus effective communication. Now confidence has an underlying assumption that you already have the skills. So yeah, skills, confidence plus effective communication would be something, a whole strategy for the interview.
That's great. Rutu, would you like to add something to this?
Actually, it's been some time since I've given interviews. I think since Devang and Nizazur have just given, they would be better suited. But overall, if I can just give like sort of a generalized overview, I would say that, as Devang mentioned, right, it's very important to be confident. It's not about how you are feeling; it's about what the interviewer is perceiving. So if I talk about tech interviews specifically, I would say that take the time. If you are if an interviewer asks you a question, you don't need to immediately answer them, right? You have like an hour, and I would say that practice not feeling the pressure of having to answer someone immediately. So you can ask them for 2 to 3 minutes, chalk out a strategy, or like chalk out what your initial ideas are before talking. Like the mistake which I've heard that a lot of people make is that they just start talking and they hope to find the answer along the way, which will not happen, right? So take your time, be confident, because that 1 hour is all about you, and then figure out a strategy, and then talk to them. I think that is very important. And another important thing for tech interviews, I would say, is that you don't always have to give the optimized solution first. You can give like a very basic answer first, like the very, I'm talking about FANG interviews and all of that. You can give like the normal, brute force solution first, and then you can say, okay, now I'm going to try to optimize it and then do it, right? You don't have to, without writing it down, you don't have to give them the best solution, because they also want to see how your thought process is working. This is like another thing. And like the third thing I would say is that when you're doing something, always keep the interviewer in the loop. Like if you're writing something, let's say for tech, you're writing some code, as you're writing, explain to them what you're doing, because you cannot assume that the interviewer will know what you're writing, because your writing style will be different. Let's say the language is a language that the interviewer himself does not know. So let's say he is efficient in Python, but you're doing it in C++, then take him through it and explain, okay, this line is probably going to do this line I'm writing for this. Like keep them also informed, so that if you're lost, they will also be able to help you. So like overall, I think this is for tech interviews.
That's great. Ijazat, would you like to add?
Yeah. One thing I want to add that it happens that in interview it gets sometimes stressed, and when you are in stressed situation, the best out of you won't come. So so I used to think that before appearing any interview, that this is not the only opportunity I will get to prove myself or to work in such a kind of good company. So I always think that if I cannot pass that interview or cannot crack that interview, I will get some other interview opportunity. So that boosted me confidence. And one thing happened that actually before CDC, I had an offer. So I got an offer from a very ambitious firms during CDC. So in that interview, it happened that I didn't have any kind of stress, because I already have a good offer. And because of no stress, the best out of me came during the interview. So it's very important to be without stress during the interview. So this is the very best important. And one thing is pretty important, that before your interview, apart from kind of preparation, so do one thing, give some mock interview. If you don't have the option to do mock interview, think out loud. It is very important that what you are doing, the other person or the interview panel, you can explain what you are doing. So the think out loud is very important. So what I used to do when I solve a problem before few days of interview, I started to kind of doing some commentary on my code or whatever I am reading, whatever I am writing. And other thing is that I used to write some things like which other people, like on the other and the interviewer will understand very easily. So these are kind of very important skills. And I think that these things come under the good communication skill. So good communication skill does not mean that you have to be very good at English. And as you understand that my English is not that good, but these things doesn't matter. So you have to convey your idea properly, and you have to be stress-free. And when you are stress-free, only you can think very, very deep. And that's very important for a tech interview. So these things I want to add.
That's
And
great.
yeah, and another thing like for HR interviews, so I was attended one of the session, and in that session it was said that you hit 6 for Bumrah and Sami and can't get out to Kedar Jadhav. So I think it's very important that once you clear these coding rounds, you can't get eliminated in the HR round. So before appearing HR round, like give it a thorough research to the company and what kind of expected HR questions might be asked if you read some prior interview experience. Like if you know about Google, so it has one round called the Googliness round. So and I was also given an interview of Amazon, so it has few kind of fixed leadership principles, and based on that they will ask some standard question. So I have prepared all of the HR questions, like standard HR questions. I have write it down in front of my PC. So when they asked, so I kind of explained that. So that gave me some confidence on that as well, and kind of organized my answer. So that is pretty important. That yeah, that's all.
All right, that's great. Saransh, would you like to add something from your own experience?
Yeah, a lot has been explained very nicely by my fellow panelist. I would like to add that apart from your resume and your technical skills, please prepare the toughest question in an interview, which is tell me something about yourself. Because this is the question through which you carry forward your interview. Um, you basically give a pathway to the interview, like what kind of questions he is expected to ask you. You're the master of your own interview, and answer each and every question very precisely. Respect their time, and one more fact, like um, any interviewer cannot listen to you for more than 1.5 minutes with full concentration. So answer very precisely and to the point. And it's not a grand viva, like it's your interview is not like a viva, like a professor taking your viva. Just keep it conversational. You're talking to someone in a very respectful manner. Yeah, that would be my suggestion during an interview.
Okay, that was very interesting. So one more question we need clarification on is that what would be the ideal time for mailing the HRs or the company? So Ritu, would you like to take this question first?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So I'll say since you have just 2 months left, I'd say, the best time would be now. But in general, if you're looking, since you're asking about companies, so in general for tech companies as well, the way they hire is, let's say they're going to campuses, right? So campus internships happen sometime around August. So they have like a campus place internship plan, and they have like a number that they'll want to hire. And almost always it so happens that they do not meet their target because some people drop off, some people take other offers, and some people go for other studies or whatever. So they'll have like an initial plan that they'll make, and then after that internship season, which ends let's say around September, October, then they start hiring through lateral programs like hackathons, competitions, and also through their career page. So immediately after that, and in general, they keep hiring throughout the year, and they close right before internships actually start. So in general, there is no like only time that you can apply. You can apply throughout the year because positions are open throughout. So ideally, I would say what you can do is for companies, since that is the question, you can set up alerts on their page. So if you go to the company page, you can search for the profile that you're interested in, and you can set up an alert. So anytime there is a related profile that has been released, some opening that Microsoft has, or let's say any other company has, they will send you a mail, and then you can apply. So put out alerts, and like the best time would be now. You can obviously find open positions right now, and like if you want to ask for referrals or if you want to start mailing, you can do it now itself. So yeah.
Okay, Izazur, would you like to go next?
Yeah, like for tech companies, if you are applying off campus for full-time role or whatever, ideally the best time is around September, October at this time frame. I think the most of the companies, if you look into their career portal, you will see that the openings will start like we'll start be showing in their webpage around late August or September and in this time frame. So it's best to apply early as possible. But yeah, like for big tech companies, they hire almost throughout the year. So you can apply for at any time.
And Saransh?
Ideal time for building that company. Okay. Um, I think if you are aiming for a summer internship, you can start right away. Yeah, because it's the time when people start mailing. If I'm not wrong. Uh, if you are aiming for some semester away internship, which usually doesn't happen at IIT KGP, only my branch allow that. So ideal time would be before 2 to 3 months from the actual start date of your internship. Start mailing right from that version. Yeah.
Devang, would you like to add something to that?
No, I think we've had a holistic picture here.
Okay, that was great then. Yeah, let's have the next question then. Now we have a question and answer session. We have collected some of the frequently asked questions from the audience, students community, and it would be great if you could shed some light on these questions. So the first question is, what is the difference between a non-CDC internship and a CDC internship, and would it affect the placements?
So I'll start with that. What is the difference between a CDC internship and a non-CDC
1 second, can you
internship?
just a second? Can you move the slide? I think it would be better. Or
yeah.
Yeah. I think you can continue till then. Yeah.
So an internship is an internship. So let's say I am looking at CDC companies and like let's say non-CDC, right? So the big names, all the big companies that come to CDC like Amazon, Google, FANG companies, you can, if you're getting a CDC intern and let's say you get an off-campus intern, it is the same. So like the stipend will be the same, the work will be like, it'll be like spread out, you'll be treated the same as the other interns. So technically there is no difference at all. So I don't think that is a problem here. But if you look at like the other companies, definitely through CDC there are a lot more opportunities and more easily available because the companies are bought to campus, whereas if you have to apply off campus, you have to try on your own. That is the only difference. That is the effort factor that you have to apply in searching for companies. But apart from that, let's say you get an internship on campus or you get an internship off campus, it is counted in your like overall compulsory thing that you have to do in internships. And will it affect the placement? So I'm assuming you're asking based on like quality of company, like that depends on what sort of profile you're aiming for. So let's say you get like a very big brand, you can get that with CDC and without CDC, so that is not an issue. But like with the other companies, if you have like there is a chance that you can get like a better internship through CDC than off campus. But in general, I would say that it's not going to affect the placements as such. Like an internship will be counted the same regardless of how you get it.
Okay, Devang, your opinion on this?
No, I think that was almost completely covered. The difference between a CDC and a non-CDC internship is how it is, how you secure that internship. And will it affect the placements? Definitely not. Look, if you are getting a good off-campus intern, no, definitely not.
Okay, and Saransh?
I think points have been pretty much covered by both.
Also, then
only
Ijazul?
one thing to add is that if you are getting like PPO from a non-CDC intern and they are not conveying that information to CDC, you will still get a chance to sit for placement and accepting that offer. That's the only difference. Otherwise, exactly same.
That was a great point.
Okay.
All right. Moving on to the next question, we have, are there some mandatory skills needed for any internship in general? Any panelists who would like to take up this question?
I would like to take this question. So, if you want to take a, if you want to get a fruitful internship, by fruitful internship, I mean that you want to learn something. Yeah, definitely, you need some skills prior to joining that. But if you want to do some redundant work, like some people do these data entry kind of internship, you don't need any skill in general. But I would not prefer doing those kind of internships.
All right, that's great.
Just a
Devang, would you
second.
like?
So yeah, I mean, this is again a very funny question. So I mean, the question can be interpreted as, so do I need some specific skill to acquire an internship or actually get past that internship? Because there's a huge possibility that, you have a 6 months internship and then you mess it up, so they fire you in 3 months. So what exactly does this question mean to do any internship in general? Can you please elaborate that? Because yeah, there are good answers to either of the cases.
I mean, we just want to know about the required skills for any general internships, some basic skills that are needed for a person.
Okay, so
Or we can go with both the cases.
okay, cool. So again, I think one of these cases was covered by Saransh. The other thing is that um, you need to have, I'd say that there is not a necessity that you have the skill, but then it's obviously a benefit, and that is being structured just in general. Structured as in, uh, you know, people have a lot of resources. You have your time as a resource, and then when you are supposed doing an internship, so there is this one thing that they give you some tasks. Suppose you're working under directly, you have a reporting manager, and you're working directly under him. So he'll just give you some tasks. So how do you prioritize those tasks? It's still a skill. So, I mean, it is definitely, if you are just, you know how to prioritize and structure any problem that is thrown at you, then I think that is one thing that would definitely be very beneficial for any internship, irrespective of tech, non-tech, whatever domain you are in.
All right. Any other panelists who would like to add anything to this?
No,
All
nothing
right
to
then.
add here.
All right, Sakshi.
Yeah, so let's have a next question then. So, should a student maintain a single CV for CDC internships and off-campus internships, or is it better to have a separate CVs for each?
Okay, so I would like to take that. So one important aspect of CDCCB you cannot write. So it's auto-generated and you have to fill only the boxes. But when you apply to the company, so they will first, when you directly apply to their career page, so they will screen your CV. There are some automated algorithms they put there to screen your CV. But when you apply to the CDC CV, so you will see that the informations put there are not automatically extracted. So I would suggest that best prepare a CV on LaTeX or whatever you are comfortable with, so that it kind of get extracted easily. So that will definitely help for the auto screening process. So that's the only thing. Otherwise, it's always better because the format of the CDCCB is not that good. You can find all a better template than the CDCCB everywhere. So yeah, it's better to have a separate CB for off campus. And also you can keep any what the best practice is. If you have done some good projects and you want to highlight a particular project for a particular company, so write everything in your CV and then comment out in the LaTeX everything like what you are interested, and then directly apply with that. So that's the only thing.
And just adding one more thing, since we're talking about off-campus opportunities in tech, I would personally recommend that you make a different CV, and you can add credibility to that CV if you're personally making it through links. If you have done a project and it's a live project, then add a link. If you have a GitHub repo for something like some project that you have done, even if it's a research intern, then add a link. And that is a customization, benefit, and that helps a lot. It's my personal experience that it helps a lot.
Okay, any other panelists would add to this? Okay, then, yeah, let's move on to the next question.
All right. So another quite a common question with regards to CV that we have here. Do PORs play any role in attracting attention of recruiters? And what are the major things they look for in the CV? Panelists, please share your thoughts on this.
Yeah, I think that this question already been answered in kind of how much extra academic activities and these things are important for various profile. So kind of it varies how much important POR is for a particular profile, and it can vary from job role to job role. Okay.
All right, then let's move ahead. Okay, so let us take some questions from our audience here now. So, what is the average time by which one should apply to get a summer intern in a good company? And how difficult it is to get an internship in a FANG company through off-campus? Any panelists who would like to take up on this?
So let me take that. Like for an intern, I think that the recruitment time is very less. For I had applied off campus for the full-time opportunity, so it took me around 2 months because there are like virtual on-site round, another thing. Earlier this used to happen on-site, like you have to visit that company and give that round. Nowadays everything happens online, but for interview there are fewer rounds, and it can vary like depending on when the actual recruitment there. I think that sometimes a recruiter collects the names of the person like and take some time to screen, and when they have some good bucket of the candidates, and then they reach out to the everyone. Like there are some recruitment cycles. Let's say that it might take some time, and in some cases it might happen immediately, so it's kind of quite varied.
So another question that we have is, can we find any list of companies or HR's mail IDs if there are any available?
So I'll talk about this. So as I also mentioned some resources. I'm not sure if you guys caught that, but like cold emailing in general, if you're applying to big companies, right, they don't really work out. Like the success rate is pretty less unless, let's say, you have like an excellent CV and let's say you have some publications or something. But in general, if you'd want to cold email companies, like the first thing you have to do is improve your LinkedIn connections, because LinkedIn's rule is that there are first degree, second degree, and third degree connections. And first degree connections ka usually you can see their email ID and sometimes even phone number in their about section. And for second degree connections you cannot, and for third degree so there's basically abstraction in each layer. So the more connections you have and the more people you're connected to, the more chances that there is you might come across recruiters and you can get connected with them. So that is one way, and the other way is that there are very popular extensions. I think it's called Lusha. You guys can just check it out. So LinkedIn extensions, say through you can extract their email IDs and then you can mail. And apart from that, you can also mail like the career page. This will not work for very big companies, but for like small startups to mid-sized companies, you can also mail right away to their career page and they will get back to you.
All right, that's great. One last question that we have is, are there any specific requirements that one should be prepared for before starting any hackathons related to ML AI fields?
Okay, I will take the question. So, specific requirements. What could be more specific than the core, the theoretical uh, knowledge of the AI ML and hands-on practice on machine learning in Python or any language? Uh, I think these are the basic requirements to start with any project, be it in a hackathon or some live project. Uh, can you please elaborate your question, whoever has asked this? Uh, Hello?
Yeah, okay. We'll see if we get a response for that. Till then, we'll move on to the next question. Okay. So the next question is, could you please tell us what should be included in the cold mail for tech?
So like there are a lot of resources online, excuse me, through which you can find you can also find email templates. You can find everything online. So all you have to do is just a simple Google search on how do I customize my mails for tech companies, and they'll give you like a template. They'll give you an explanation and all of that. But over the top of my head, in general, if you're writing an email, I would say like have to remember like a points of my head. I would say keep it concise and to the point. Attach your CV and keep the subject very clear so it's easy for them to notice. And in the email, the main questions that you have to answer is why that company, why you, because this is tech. I would say why that company, that why do you want to join that company, and why you. So you talk about your skills, talk about what you've done in terms of your experience, and make it all curated to that particular profile. So if I'm applying for software development, I will not say that I have a POR, right? So curate every email and personalize it. But in general, like you can easily find resources on the internet, but I would say don't directly copy paste. After you have like a basic template, I would say edit it and make it to your customization.
All right, let's move on to the next question. So, is CP mandatory to crack FANG? Any panelists?
Yeah, if you see that the placement questions in the recent time, so you will see that the level of the difficulty has gone up. So if you are doing CP, so it would have been like, it would be very helpful to crack those coding rounds. So it's not mandatory. With some sort of lead code or interview with programming skill, you can crack those. But yeah, it's very good to have good CP.
All right, I guess that's all the questions that we have. Okay, so now as we approach the end of our discussion today, our Janta would really love to get some other fun days or other important points that you feel we might have missed. So any panelists would like to share those? Devang, Ejasar, Rutu,
Yeah, I think
Saran.
that the most of the questions for off campus is already.
All right.
Yeah, so I just say that, I think we've answered all the questions, specifics, and like we've, answered about the tech specifically. But I would say that, you guys, if you're really looking for tech internships in this summer, you should start applying as soon as possible. And don't be afraid to reach out. Like if you want to reach out to seniors for like, like a CV review, or you want to reach out to them for referrals, do it. Because when they were juniors, and like when they were juniors, we've also asked a lot of seniors for referrals. We've asked a lot of them for fund day. So like, don't hesitate to reach out, and keep on reaching out to seniors. And like the final thing would be like, the probability that you'll get into a big company on your first interview is not that high, right? So don't lose like faith. Like if you have 2 months, let's say you give 5 interviews and you get one offer, that is a very, very good statistic. So I would say that be ready for the extent that you'll have to go to. It's like a marathon. You're not going to get one interview and get an offer. You'll have to give like a series. So be ready for that and be mentally prepared. And like, seniors are always there, people are always there. So don't be afraid to reach out.
Just adding a little bit to that, that is again relevant a little bit about the off-campus internship scenario. So I want to highlight the power of connections here. So right now, in an ideal scenario, I'm talking just about any fresher who's coming into the IIT KGP. Ideally, you should know people five batch, who are five batch above you and five batch below you. Because let's talk about the long-term vision, say 10 or 20 years from now, almost all of them will be holding some of the other key position somewhere, not only in India, somewhere not like we have huge amount of domains where people from KGP are present, and you just people just in general need to realize that in the real world, uh, a lot of problems that are almost impossible to solve can be solved through just a couple of phone calls if you have good connections. And so connections are powerful. So just a general fund day would be, again, I think Rutu highlighted that, build don't hesitate to reach out. But then it's not just about reaching out. Try to, build some sort of a personalized connection, even if you're reaching out to any senior or anything, so that he can remember you. Say post that interaction. That is something that I'd say.
All right, that's great. So, thanks a lot for all the insights that you have provided us with. Saransh, Rutu, Ijazur, and Devang. Thanks a lot for sharing your knowledge and experience with our audience. It was quite informative. Our Janta would have definitely benefited from that. It was great to have you guys as panelists.